We are Irish, and it's an opportunity, the parade and everything around the parade for that matter, to sit back and say, you know, we belong, and to have that feeling growing up and loving the people that you get to meet, it means an awful lot to us as people, as far as our memories as children, and I look forward to it every year.
Many people that don't speak English in the Quebec City area that have the name like Murphy, you know, so there's a lot of, like they say, 40% of the Quebecers today are of some type of Irish descent.
It's important once a year to remember where we come from. My grandmother is Irish from my mother's side, of McCabe. I mean, there's so many examples like that. Everybody has some Irish blood, and that's the reason why I'm stubborn, but I'm proud of it. And, you know, us Irish know how to party, so we have to show the example.
When the world looks at the city of Montreal, it can ring synonymous with that French-speaking part of Canada, that place where they speak the different French joual, or hockey, or that place where you feast on great for the figure poutine, smoked meat, and bagels, and where Celine Dion comes from, who ironically also has a history of owning smoked meat delis in the city, including the iconic Schwartz Deli, but that's besides the point. But what might also come to mind amidst all its hallmarks is just how big of a cultural deal and how celebrated St. Patrick's Day and its parade are in this bilingual city on the northeast coast of North America. Indeed, Montreal is widely claimed to be the third largest parade in the world, the longest running in North America, the oldest and first being in Boston, is home to the largest and oldest in Canada and the second largest in North America. That says a lot about this Irish tradition in Montreal. If you don't take my word for it, National Geographic has gone so far as to hold it amongst the top 10 St. Patrick's Day celebrations in the world. But have we ever stopped and asked ourselves, wait a second, why is this? How did this come to be, and why is it so important? Why here? Every outcome is the after effect of previous measures, right? So what is the butterfly effect that made this particular parade in Montreal such a big affair throughout soon-to-be 2 centuries? Uninterrupted since 1824. What if we work our way backwards in time to fully comprehend and unearth why St. Patrick's Day in Montreal is embedded in the city's cultural DNA and has such a claim to fame on St. Patrick's parades worldwide? We might just be amazed at how much the Irish community is at the root of all that we have in worship today in the city of Montreal. A colony by nature, Quebec's population has always been made up of a wide range of ethnic groups, a cultural stew. The Irish, however, are without a doubt one of the most significant in Montreal's heritage.
Montreal is proud to have 85,000 residents of Irish origin living in this city, more than 1,100,000 on the island and 225,000 in the metropolitan region. We're taking over. Nearly half the members of Quebec's Irish community reside in the Greater Montreal.
Based on the latest 2011 census figures, an estimated 223,000 Montrealers in the city's metropolitan area are of Irish descent. That's 40% of the population having Irish origins, and Canada's 4th largest ethnic group. It's estimated that a staggering 1.2 million Irish came to Canada between 1825 and 1970. And at last count, around 4.4 million Canadians can brag having Irish blood pouring through their veins.
Blazing fires we drop, the starry heavens o'er us.
there's so much Irish culture in Montreal, and so to be part of that community, I think, you know, it unites Francophones and Anglophones alike, and, you know, to see everybody out on parade day too, you really get, your heart swells a little bit seeing everybody.
How did this happen, and where does it all trace back to, you ask? Well, to put it lightly, there is a long history of Irish in Quebec. Montreal actually has one of the oldest and last standing Irish communities in North America, along with South Boston. How far back do Irish roots go in this neck of the woods? Some think automatically, well, the Great Potato Irish Famine. That isn't the case. The first recorded source of Irish lineage in Montreal can be traced back to before 1661. Settling in then New France in the service of the kings of France, his name was Tech Aubry, the French-derived version of the Gaelic name, Tajd Cornelius O'Brennan. The last name ring a bell to fellow Quebecers? I bet you didn't presume it stems from an Irish name. Monsieur Tech had 7 children, and his son, François Aubry, had 14. That's a good start to a lot of descendants, the ancestor to all the billions of Aubrys we have today in Quebec, like in Canada. It's especially as of the first half of the 19th century that the Irish started to significantly populate Montreal. Let's see simultaneously what surged this and what was going on in Ireland. The first major wave of Irish immigrants came to Quebec after the Napoleonic Wars around 1813, depression, expulsion, outbreaks such as cholera in 1832, and crop failures. By 1844, Irish immigrants represented 6.3% of Quebec's population, then Lower Canada. Then it happened, the Great Potato Famine of 1845 to 1850. It was a devastation in Ireland, and so with it came a massive flux of emigration in 1847. In fact, of Ireland's 8 million people, 1 million died of starvation and another 1 million emigrated in search of better living conditions and farmable land. What was appealing in Canada was the alleged charities and open arms for immigrants. More affluent people who were prepared to help them out, supporting them financially during their starter years in Canada. To get specific, in 1847, 80,000 Irish disembarked in the port of Quebec City. Now, to put that into context, in Montreal, the number of immigrants who arrived that year exceeded the city's existing population. Overall, between 1831 to 1850, 600,000 Irish set their roots in the province of Quebec. But this wasn't a Cinderella story for the new Irish kids in town. They did not get off to a good start in Quebec, let's just say that. Montreal wasn't adequately equipped to receive the flood of impoverished and disease-stricken immigrants who contracted the outbreak of typhus, also known as ship fever, aboard the crowded and inhumane condition ships coming over, known as coffin ships.
So many people came from Ireland because of the famine, and they decided to come into North America. And when they got to Montreal, believe it or not, most of the people thought they were well all along the trip. They didn't experience or didn't have any of the symptoms. But when they got to the shores of Montreal, they were very, very sick.
Montreal didn't see what was coming for it. Uncontained, typhus reached epidemic proportions, and the government erected large fever sheds in a quarantine area known as Windmill Point, now known as Point St. Charles, later renamed Victoriatown, after the adjacent Victoria Bridge, that's now on Bridge Street, to house those who had contracted typhus.
The people in Montreal, the French-speaking people, took them in. They embraced every single person, and they took the sick into their houses. They came and volunteered to help them in fever sheds that were thrown together just to keep the elements off the poor sick people. So they were our heroes.
In Quebec City, 17,000 of those who arrived in the port of Quebec died of typhus between 1847 and 1848. That represents almost 20% of all the immigrants who arrived in the city of Quebec that year. Montreal saw 6,000 of its newfound immigrants die in those years, and they were buried at Windmill Point, despite the caregiving of men and women from medical and religious communities, such as the Grey Nuns organization in Montreal, a number of whom also died of typhus in order to help the Irish in need. The mayor of Montreal then, John Easton Mills, actually also died from this episode, helping in the fever sheds. When the Victoria Bridge was being built between 1854 and 1859, workers discovered human remains of the Irish immigrants at Windmill Point, who perished to typhus on their way over to the Promised Land.
And the workers from the company there thought, when they started seeing the bones, they thought it was a disgrace that there was no markers.
To honor and guard their Irish ancestors, Irish laborers building Montreal's Victoria Bridge lugged and erected an enormous rock in 1859, known today as the famed Black Rock, or the Irish Commemorative Stone.
They decided to put it at the head of what was then the cemetery as a marker so that people would never forget that there was over 6,000 people buried there.
What's even more noteworthy is that it's the first memorial to the Great Famine anywhere in the world.
And that location is actually the largest burial site of that tragedy. And it's pretty much sitting there in an industrial area that's gone through many changes over the years.
Still today, Montreal's Irish community, led by the Ancient Order of Hibernians Association, that means native of Ireland, makes an annual march called Walk to the Stone, to that site on the last Sunday in May since 1867. About 1,500 Irish children lost their parents in 1847 as a result of this typhus epidemic that eradicated the famine immigrants.
The French bishop at the time asked the French Canadians to please adopt these children, but allow them to keep their Irish names. And so that's where it all starts, from the heart.
They responded generously, and many orphans were sent to relatives, placed in Quebec families, placed in orphanages, or married into the French community, leading to many French-speaking Quebecois with Irish names.
In Quebec, it's pretty hard to separate a person who's French from a person who's Irish because we really are interspersed with one another.
So if you know any Francophone Books, Martins, or Charest, for instance, they might not be as pure-blooded French as you think.
Wherever you go in Quebec, you see places where the Irish have left their mark, whether it's Shannon, north of Quebec City. As a member of the National Assembly, I go to Quebec City every week. You look through the history of people who sat in the National Assembly, and you will find Ryans and Flynns and O'Neills. Some of them didn't speak a word of English, but they are part of that great story.
And if so far you're not convinced, how about letting the numbers speak for themselves? In 1851, the Irish population of the province of Quebec was at its highest peak. In Montreal, the Irish accounted for a fifth of the population. As a matter of fact, in 1853, the population of the Irish working class district stood at 30,000, making it the largest English-speaking minority in Lower Canada, in an overwhelmingly French-Canadian population.
In the rest of the province, the Irish community is very much intermarried and blended in with the French community. In Montreal, it's part of the Anglophone community, obviously, but it's distinct from the Scottish and the English and the Welsh community that was, because, of course, it was primarily Catholic, although there was a Protestant dimension as well. So in terms of the relationship with the Francophone majority, Irish people were well received. The majority were well disposed because of that common bond in terms of religion, in terms of music, in terms of culture, in terms of a whole attitude towards life. So the English-speaking Irish community in Montreal fills a very particular kind of niche and serves as a kind of bridge between the larger Anglophone community and the Francophone community, because of those bonds between Irish and France, or Ireland and Quebec and Ireland.
And it gets better. By 1871, the province of Quebec had a higher proportion of Irish-born residents than anywhere else in North America. So So what is the significance of the Irish population to Quebec society? Well, if you take the time to look closely and dive into the past, you'll find that the history of Montreal is intricately linked to the Irish's contributions. With populating the city of Montreal in the 19th and early 20th century, came also establishing its cornerstones and enduring legacies that it has today. They helped colonize and build Quebec's economy, as well as its collective identity that absorbed and baptized a distinctive Irish Quebec urban culture into its fabric. The trendy and gentrified Griffintown of today that is swelling again due to yuppies flocking to it is a far cry from the Griffintown of yesteryears. As writer Stephen Leacock put it in 1943, it was regarded as a wretched area whose tumbled shabby houses mock at the wealth of Montreal. By the end of the 19th century, it was the poorest and the most densely populated neighborhood in the city. It's come a long way, huh? I wonder just how far our Irish predecessors' jaws would drop in awe that their once scanty quarters were now one of the most sought-out and pricey areas of town. Nonetheless bohemian, but leaning towards the more bourgeois bohemian side of things, if you know what I mean.
My dad lived in Griffintown, so Griffintown and Point St. Charles, I mean, my God. You didn't think there was anybody else but the Irish, you know?
It was the heart of the Irish heart of Canada.
The working-class Irish immigrants based themselves. A community and neighborhood was born here, to who we owe much of the city's development and economic industry. Behind its now stylish, exclusive condos, its bike path filled with green shake runners, and its thick-frame dandies hanging out in effortlessly cool hangouts, lies an area whose ground holds a lot of symbolic history to the rise of Montreal. Once upon a time, only Irish voices and accents would dance around your ears when you strolled along the streets of this neighborhood. For instance, it isn't known to many that an Irish man named Ambrose O'Brien is behind the co-creation in 1910 of the sacred and beloved Montreal Canadiens hockey team, where he acted as the first president. Or that previously, the Irish community created the Montreal Shamrocks hockey team, who became Stanley Cup champions in 1899 and 1900. Or that the oldest functioning stables on the island emerged in Griffintown, the Horse Palace. The stable, originally built about 150 years ago, is still in use today by the well-known horse carriages drivers of Old Montreal. Or I bet you have no idea that the name of the illustrious Montreal restaurant, Joe Beef, located in Griffintown, Little Burgundy, was inspired by a certain Charles McKiernan, an Irish immigrant who owned the popular tavern Joe Beef's Tavern. It opened in 1868 and served as a shelter for the needy, and Charles earned the nickname through his ability of providing the needy with meat and provisions and advocating for the working class, hence the name Joe Beef. Their labor helped make Montreal the hub of Quebec's emerging industrial economy in an area that was paramount to the city's development. This is Griffintown. Griffintown, a name given from the early 19th century until now to a southwest part of downtown Montreal by working-class Irish immigrants who first populated the area. The area stretches as far north as Notre Dame Street and is roughly bordered on the east by McGill Street and on the west by Guy Street. Many buildings were torn down in the early 1960s to make way for the construction of the Bonaventure Expressway in anticipation of the World Expo in 1967. That cut Griffintown in half and marked the end of its heyday. But way before all this, what people don't know is that Griffintown acquired its name from a Mary Griffin, wife of a soap manufacturer, who was the alleged owner. But its origin is actually the result of false propriety. The land, then known as Nazareth Fief, under British administration at the time of the British conquest of 1760, didn't technically belong to this Mary Griffin, but was in the name of Mr. Thomas McCord. He was an Irish businessman and ancestor of the McCord Museum family, who purchased the ground from the nuns of Hôtel Dieu in 1791. Now, while he was stuck in Great Britain for many years to attend to his business interests, the land increased in value due to the prospect of the building of the Canal Lachine. And a dishonest associate of his who was in charge of his Montreal affairs sold it to Miss Mary Griffin without his consent. Around 1804, she mapped out and registered a detailed plan to subdivide the region into small streets and lots for developers and the anticipated arrival of canal workers. When Mr. McCord returned, he eventually succeeded in getting the land back after a series of court actions, but by that time, the name of Griffin had stuck and had already become synonymous with the area. So why don't you go ahead and tell your friends that you're in McCord Town? No, you won't look like a geek. You're just giving credit where credit is due.
We're definitely a very community-oriented group. Everyone helps each other out. We're extremely, we volunteer a lot, and we're very generous in terms of giving our time, giving our money.
I've been every year to the parade for as long as I can remember, so I wanted to get back, and I started working in the kitchen, cleaning dishes, and next thing I know, I'm president. So, you know, like once you say, can I help, then you can't get away.
And very proud of the people who give of their time. You know, these are people, and especially people in the United Irish Societies, nobody gets paid. And they have to give of their time from their family to make everything work. And let me tell you, for something that nobody gets paid, that parade is something else.
Do you know that Irish laborers are the muscle behind the construction of your beloved Lachine Canal in 1821, the industrious Port of Montreal, and the beautiful Victoria Bridge in 1850s, dubbed then the 8th wonder of the world at the time? It opened in 1859, and this architectural marvel was the first bridge to span the vast St. Lawrence from Point St. Charles to the opposite shore. In fact, consisting of 20% of the population of Montreal, by the mid-1850s, Irish immigrants played a significant role in the rise of Montreal. It is even claimed that the era of industrialization and the modern economic movement was born in Canada here, on the Lachine Canal, Griffintown being instrumental in this phenomenon. The proximity of Griffintown to the Lachine Canal had important economic benefits. The canal provided an efficient transportation route for trade, as well as an excess of cheap labor due to the Irish residents, prompting manufacturing industries to set up shop around the area. The immigrants found work either at the docks or on major building projects. These Irishmen are at the source of the development of Quebec's strong infrastructures.
It's not been an easy story. If you look back to the 19th century, the terrible conditions that people from the Irish community came away from, but they built a strong community, they built strong parishes, they built strong sporting associations, they supported the St. Mary's Hospital, they supported Loyola College, and on it went. So they've made this huge contribution to Quebec, to Montreal.
So much so that in 1832, when Montreal's mayor Jacques Vigier adopted its new coat of arms, the Irish's influence on the city led to a shamrock being prominently represented on the Montreal flag, along with the lily, the rose, and the thistle, symbolic of the French, English, and Scottish communities in the city. There's no escaping it. The Irish are considered one of Montreal's 4 founding fathers. The influence of the Irish also rubbed off on the social and cultural landscape of the city. Irish immigrants to Quebec love their homeland's patron saint, a bloke called Patrick. And this is manifested by his name being bestowed on institutions throughout the city, such as St. Patrick's Basilica on René Lévesque, and societies such as the St. Patrick's Society. Celebratory events were essential to the social life of the Irish immigrants, to preserve their Irish traditions and commemorate where they came from, St. Patrick's being the biggest Irish celebration of all. But who is this Patrick, say you, and how did St. Patrick's come to be? And what's with all the green, anyway? Well, let's just say that this holiday didn't start out as one big pub crawl. Indeed, long before St. Patrick's Day was a holiday for revelry, it was known as a religious feast day in the Catholic faith to honor Ireland's patron saint, who died on the famed 17th of March, his death date in 461. In religious terms, a feast day usually amounted to a celebration that is commemorated with a meal on the anniversary of a saint's death. People traditionally attended church and gathered for a feast. And believe it or not, for the first nearly 6 decades, bars had to stay closed in Ireland because the holiday falls during Lent. The law was lifted in 1961, and now 13 million pints of Guinness are sold around the world on March 17th. But as it turns out, our boy Patrick was neither saintly nor Irish. Born in the late 4th century in Britain, when it was still part of the Roman Empire, he showed little interest in Christianity until he was kidnapped by Irish raiders at age 16 and spent 6 years in Ireland as a slave. He escaped back to Britain, became a priest, and returned to Ireland as a missionary to convert the population to Catholicism, where he built churches and spread the Christian faith for some 30 years. Therefore, this Patrick made Ireland Christian, and when he died, he became the patron saint. He is the symbol of Catholicism in Ireland. And the use of the shamrock as a quintessential Irish symbol, it also derives from Patrick. The shamrock is the leaf of the clover plant and known as the national flower of Ireland. According to St. Patrick's Day folklore, Patrick used the 3 leaves to explain the Christian Holy Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and it is used to demonstrate Irish Christian pride. The tradition later grew into wearing green clothing, a popular St. Patrick's Day usage today.
It's in the blood. It's something you can't let go. It's that time of the year you have to get out and show your colors.
And kids, I hope I'm not breaking it to you like Santa Claus, but sorry, the shamrock actually doesn't exist. St. Patrick's Day, also known as Feast Day, only became a national holiday in Ireland in 1903. But the St. Patrick's Day worldwide traditions that we know today evolved across the pond when Irish immigrants came to North America and brought that feast day with them as early as the 1700s. It represented a tribute and celebration of their Irish heritage and pride. As a matter of fact, St. Patrick's Day celebrations in Quebec date as far back as 1759, 3 years before New York's famed parade. The feast day was paid tribute to by Irish Protestant soldiers serving with the British. Quebec then was under British rule after the Great Conquest of New France. Now, few people are aware of it, but the first St. Patrick's Parade in Canada was held in the province of Quebec. in Trois-Rivières to be precise, when American soldiers from Boston with the Revolutionary Army captured the city and marched through the streets. The observance of St. Patrick's Day was marked then by special dinners and the celebration of religious services. The first actual celebration with a parade in Montreal was organized on March 17, 1824, by a certain Michael O'Sullivan, a lawyer and a member of the Parliament of Lower Canada.
And it has continued ever since. There has never been a year where we haven't had a parade for St. Patrick's in Montreal.
Then, 10 years after the parade began in 1824, Montreal's Irish founded the St. Patrick's Society in 1834. They were the organizers of the parade for 58 years until 1892.
The society was founded in 1834, pre-Confederation, by an act of Parliament, believe it or not, before Canada was even formed. Andy Fogarty, who is our oldest member, who's 96 years of age, he probably founded it. I think he was a few years short.
Initially, both Protestant and Catholics were prominent in St. Patrick's Society of Montreal. But the society became increasingly Catholic with the massive Irish emigration of the mid-1850s, and the parade became more exclusively Roman Catholic and religious in theme. So for more than a century, the parade was a march of Montreal's Irish Catholic parishes, until 1957, when the IPBS president served as Grand Marshal. In 1856, Protestant members left St. Patrick's Society that became exclusively reserved to Catholics and formed the Irish Protestant Benevolent Society. Then, from 1893 to 1928, the parade was organized by the Ancient Order of Hibernians. But during the time of the First World War, in 1918, the official downtown parade was canceled in consideration of hostility against military enrollment agents present in Montreal. The Irish were strongly opposed to military enlistment. The military agents were therefore too frightened to enter Griffintown, so as a result, the Griffintowners held an alternate parade in the spirit of continuity, therefore preserving the practice of the parade.
Then in 1928, the parade saw a new commander run the show. The United Irish Societies of Montreal was founded, with the mandate to continue the parade tradition. They held their first parade in 1929, and they organized the parade to this day.
Well, in 1928, there was a necessity to take over the parade as the AOH was giving up this position. And we took over the parade in 1928 and have run it ever since. It's been an incredible time because through all kinds of weather, this parade has never been omitted. It's been canceled once, but it ran anyway. And that's the core of it, is the fact that we celebrate St. Patrick's with family and our community that we live in.
With the 1930s came the Great Depression, and the history of the parade proved to be bumpy since then. Due to the economic downfall, the parade had to become an exclusively marching affair as floats were canceled to save money. In 1942, during the time of World War II and the year that marked Montreal's 300th anniversary, 15 parish priests petitioned the United Irish Society to cancel the parade for the duration of the war. This petition was refused, and the parade continued with, ironically so, the inclusion of the Canadian Army. In 1949, the president of the UIS canceled the parade due to freezing weather conditions. Story has it, though, to just show you how much the parade meant to the Irish community, participating military units and church organizations announced that they would march independently, nonetheless, irrespective of the official cancellation, voicing that they have made a commitment. But get this, as the parade proceeded and carried on, the parade administration hurried to join up with the unofficial parade. In 1956, the parade had its first queen and princesses added to the mix. In 1963, a tradition of the green line being painted down the center of St. Catherine Street was incorporated to the bash, and they still preserve this custom to this date.
Montreal loves their Irish parade. They like to see the green line down St. Catherine Street, and they anticipate it.
As we all know, nothing stops Canadians. And apparently in 1993, the parade soldiered on despite a blizzard that dumped 41.2 centimeters of snow. And feminists like me can rejoice, because in 2002, the United Irish Societies appointed the first female chief reviewing officer of the parade, Miss Mabel Ann Fitzgerald, followed by the first and only female Grand Marshal to this date, Miss Margaret Healy, in 2005. Her father, actually, Thomas Healy, a member of Canadian Parliament, had held the post 62 years earlier in 1943. It seems that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree for the Healys, who were both beacons in the Irish community. It's therefore the immigrants and their community spirit that invented the St. Paddy's festivities as we know them. The history of the St. Patrick's Day Parade in Montreal is a direct reflection of the presence of their dedicated community organizations in Quebec. They play a vital role in the parade's triumph and unending legacy throughout almost 2 centuries.
This is a real volunteer parade et je veux insister sur ça. C'est vraiment les bénévoles, c'est vraiment extraordinaire, le travail accompli par les sociétés irlandaises.
And the Irish community has remained strong thanks to the efforts of its many active community groups. There are about 18 Irish associations in Montreal that all do different things. There's an Irish Chamber of Commerce, an Irish Musical Association, an Irish Language Association, the Air and Sports Association, an Irish Golf Association, and an Irish Protestant Benevolent Society. 2 of the most prominent ones being the St. Patrick's Society, which hosts the annual St. Patrick's Ball, one of the longest running, if not the longest running annual social event in Montreal, and the St. Patrick's Day Luncheon, and the United Irish Societies, which organize the annual parade and the Queen's Selection Evening.
Well, I've been involved with the community since, believe it or not, since I'm age 16. And I've done many charitable organizations. Anybody that needs help, they come to see me, and I feel it's a responsibility to give back.
I think that we have a sense of pride in our roots and our heritage, and I feel that there's a good sense of community and involvement and giving back. And we unite together, and we do what we can in our little ways to put on all of these different events.
We're here to stay. We're eager to get involved. I mean, you give any one of these people here a task, they're going to try and get it done, and they're going to rally together to help each other get it done.
When I was president, we introduced all kinds of community outreach things. We started the golf tournament. We started the Christmas Carol concert. And around that time, the Cultural Committee supported the beginning of the Irish Film Festival, Cinegale. And so we began to really connect with the community. It was around the time, in the early 90s, around the time of the referendum, where the Irish community in Quebec vaguely knew that they had deep, deep roots in the province, but didn't know that story. So we decided that that story needed to be studied and taught, and that young people should know about it. And as well, we wanted to share the richness of Irish heritage with everybody who was at school or in classes and in future generations. So we began raising funds, and then we created the school, and now it's up and running and thriving.
Basically, we cover educational. We are with the School of Irish Studies through Concordia. We do immigration work with what we call the 4 Eyes and the Montreal Irish Chamber of Commerce, trying to get immigrants that are immigrating into Canada today, Irish background, into the job market in Montreal and across Canada as well. We've supported UIS in the parade with that endeavor. A lot of food banks that we deal with, a lot of different issues within the city, and we know the city has its problems with the elderly, the homeless, and we look at those as a society, where is our money best spent to help the cause.
This parade, winding through the core of our metropolis, is the oldest of its kind in North America. This is a great...
We know New York has a parade, we know Chicago has a parade, we know that absolutely Boston has a parade. But when you look at the whole notion Montreal, it's the largest parade in Canada, and I would say it's probably the second largest parade in North America after New York.
192 years is nothing to shake your head at. The celebration has been running consecutively since 1824. That's 43 years before our country was founded. It is an important annual event on many fronts. It represents not only
what UIS has done with that parade to continue to promote community spirit and the Irish flair within Montreal. It's something to be proud of, and it's something I think the community looks forward to, and they're proud of what you put down the street every year.
Our team of volunteers now have been working for over 11 months.
Behind the longevity of the St. Patrick's Day Parade exists the passed-down traditions of its organizers, full of its own protocols, idiosyncrasies, and organizational structure that have assured its uninterrupted success.
For instance, the parade is always led by a head dignitary, the Grand Marshal, originally called Marshal-in-Chief, a position that dates back to the birth of the annual event. A bright sash distinguishes the Grand Marshal, who leads the procession. He always dons an elegant black top hat, unless he is a she. The one woman to be named Montreal's Grand Marshal, Margaret Healy, had a green hat made for the occasion.
I'm the one and only female Grand Marshal ever in the parade. I was secretary in the organization, and I was president of the organization, so I've been very involved in the workings of it.
The Grand Marshal, who used to get underway the parade on a horse, now receives a little porcelain horse to pay tribute to the tradition. There's also a president, vice president, chief reviewing officer, a queen and her court of Irish descent between 18 and 25 years old that are singled out each year in a tight race for the crown and the hearts of the Irish community.
My name is Carly Meredith, and I am in my second year of law school at McGill University, and I am the 2015 Queen of the St. Patrick's Day Parade. This year marks the 60th year that the United Irish Societies has selected a queen and
The queen selection process has come a long way since the 50s at a Catholic Sailors Club on Common Street.
At the time, Religious Presentations Brothers from Ireland sponsored a variety show, and the highlight of the evening was to select a queen who would preside over the parade based on the candidate that would receive the most cheers and claps. At the time, only 5 girls participated. Now, 20 to 25 girls go up against each other in the hopes of becoming their next community's representative.
I work on a committee of a few women who help out, and we plan this event. And basically what we do is we invite women to come out and participate and try to explore their Irish roots and succeed as either princess or queen.
Please welcome Donna Dodge.
It's primarily a public speaking event, and about 10 days before tonight, we meet with the contestants and they are given a question. And they are to research that question, which has to do with their Irish roots and heritage. And from there on, they are to prepare their speech, and then they come here tonight, introduce themselves, and give their speech, and then hopefully make it to the final round.
The Queen selection process then transitioned from the Queen variety show to the Queen's pageant. However, realizing that it wasn't so politically correct to do so, the Irish community decided that they didn't want to be taken for a beauty pageant, solely based on appearance.
In 1999, it was renamed to the Queen Selection Evening, and a whopping 450 people can make it out to this event. So we're not talking about a rinky-dink church basement event here. These are people that are committed.
Their dreams and to guide them towards the future. The best part about being a kid,
other than that, my interests are winter sports. I love winter sports like skiing.
I love this event. It brings everybody from the Irish community together, but I think it also showcases how many talented young women there are in the community.
I would love to work with professional athletes in a scientific domain. Just don't want to jinx my application.
The quality of the contestants has increased. 10, 15 years ago, most of them wouldn't be necessarily at university, and now they're at McGill, they're at Concordia, they're at various universities, and they're a very impressive group of women.
I have been struggling to feel at home in Montreal once again. after having spent 3 years in Ottawa, completing my undergraduate.
I've been to the parade since I was a little girl, and I just assumed they had maybe appointed someone, but when I found out there was a whole public speaking competition behind it, it's like, sign me up. I definitely want to try out to do this.
I decided I wanted to volunteer there.
It is challenging getting up in front of a big group of people, some of them speaking in public for the first time, but it's always amazing to see what these young women have accomplished at such an early age.
No surprise, my main areas of interest are medieval England, Scotland, and Ireland.
It's a credit to the Irish community, and it gives a very positive outlook for the community in the future that these are going to be around and be part of the community.
Number 14, number 4. Get cozy, ladies.
I was a judge 2 years ago. It's a very hard job, so it's much easier tonight as Grand Marshal sitting and letting other people do the judging. But it's a great tribute, I think, to young people today in general.
I stood up here, just like all the girls tonight, and I proudly stood next to the princesses, and we began our journey, fueled by your enthusiasm.
I'm here kind of as a role model, / if they're having a crisis, I can help them out with their speeches last minute. But the main part is being able to be here to crown the incoming queen. So I kind of just pass on like good vibes and good wishes for the next year.
Deborah McHenry.
This is our 60th anniversary, and tonight we've also invited back so many former queens and princesses, many of whom have left Montreal, and tonight we have about 40 who've come back. Yeah, it's very special, and they're wearing their sashes, and they're very telling stories of the year that they were involved.
I'm really looking forward to going to the Montreal Children's Hospital and seeing the kids. And, you know, there's events like tonight where we get to dress up and wear a tiara, but sometimes it's a little bit more serious. We speak in public a lot of media appearances. It's like, are we waiting?
You know what? Maybe I'll be a prince at the end of the interview. Of course, I'm here with Queen Carly and all of her court.
She's kind of our spokesperson for the whole year, and it begins tomorrow morning. She has media appearances. She basically goes to every radio station and TV station. She attends the St. Patrick's Ball and many other galas and formals. She also goes to the hospitals, many of the hospitals with the princesses, and visits the sick kids, and she's an ambassador. She's a voice for the Montreal Irish community for the next year, and then of course that's the cherry on top is the parade.
The United Irish Society also even has their own personal mascot named Patty. I'm telling you, it's as if these people are running their own small city. St. Catherine Street hasn't always been the parade's runway. And although we might associate it with sauntering down St. Catherine Street, that hasn't always been the case. When the Irish Catholic St. Patrick's Church opened in 1847, it became the main draw of the procession, which started off in Montreal. Then, in the 1860s, as the Irish community dispersed across the city, the parade route would rotate each year between the east and west side. The western side route consisted of Griffintown, while the eastern one headed to St. Mary's Church on Panay Street.
The Irish came here as immigrants, worked hard, brought their culture, never forgot their faith, and this is something that they did. They stuck together and they helped each other, and they grew.
One of the beautiful things is everybody's Irish on St. Patrick's Day, and it's something really meant for the whole city to gather. And so that unity is so important to me, and it's organized by a group called the United Irish Societies, and for me, it's the United that's the most important word.
It's our heritage. It's something we want to keep. is something that's been going on for years, and people in times that were harder than these, the parade still went on.
Most people don't know this, but St. Patrick's celebrations don't only happen on St. Patrick's Day and Parade Day.
The United Irish Societies of Montreal start pre-festivities in February by raising the Irish community flag outside Place Ville-Marie, and a teaser of the parade through a mini parade that goes through the basement of Place Ville-Marie.
Every year we put up the flag outside announcing to the city of Montreal that we're coming. So it's called our parade flag, and we go outside and we put it up. And we did a little parade with the Black Watch and downstairs in front of the food court, so everybody can see the type of people that we, you know, the type of bands that we have in the parade. This is really the kickoff for our society for the parade. We had the Queen's selection a couple of weeks ago, so that's like the very first event that we had, the big event, and then we had the flag raising, and it should let all Montrealers know we're coming. It's a roller coaster ride right up until we have our actual end-of-year banquet on March 29th, the week after the parade. And it's only then that we kick back and we can finally relax, and we're done until a couple of months off, and then we start again in August for the following years.
There's equally a massive anticipation in early March, which kicks off what they call Irish Holy Week, a week before the parade, and an awards banquet at the end of the month that sets the seal on the Irish season.
The massive anticipation is a celebration for all those who are involved in organizing the parade. Of course, the parade's on a Sunday, and so they're so busy with it, they can't attend the big green mass that's held at St. Patrick's. So we do a special mass for all the participants, volunteers, and organizers so that they can bring the spiritual component into the parade as well in their own lives. And it's a pleasure for me to be able to do that. And so we do this the Sunday before the actual Sunday of the parade. And so Irish Holy Week is a bit of a joke, but it means that this is the week where, as the whole Irish community is getting ready for the parade, we get ourselves spiritually ready as well.
Bless our friendship and conversation, and give us generous hearts to discover where the needy are and be always ready to serve them.
And it's nice to have something religious. Everybody thinks the Irish are just out there drinking every day. No, there's a spiritual dimension to it, okay?
It's also a tradition to get your coffee and breakfast before the parade at a plethora of Irish partner pubs. And trust me, with the deep freeze cold Montreal has in March, you'll want to get your tummies full with fuel.
Our metropolis and our residents will be done up in the shamrock green of the Ireland's countryside and Clover in tribute to St. Patrick's Day. Even our City Hall again.
It's not like the United Irish Societies are stuck in time either. There is also a new, more digital St. Paddy's Day yearly tradition that was recently started by Tourism Ireland's worldwide global greening campaign. Indeed, from Rome's Colosseum to Rio de Janeiro's Statue of Christ, around 150 landmarks across the globe are floodlit with green light to mark St. Patrick's and the 70+ million Irish diaspora living around the world, including many of Montreal's own since 2014. Montreal City Hall, the Olympic Stadium, La Tour McGill College, and the Verdun Borough City Hall get all dolled up in green for the occasion. So unless you're blind or misplace your glasses, it's impossible not to know it's St. Paddy's Day on March 17th.
Cette tradition qui date de 1824 est devenue au fil des décennies un événement populaire très attendu, aussi bien par des Irlando-Montréalais comme nous.
Since 1824, the St. Patrick's Day Parade has celebrated Irish heritage and the Irish community that organizes it. An event of such a scale depends on the history and the never-ending effort of its community. Yes, but also the turnout of local Montrealers year in, year out, who stood behind it.
I've been attending the parade every year since I was 2. My family always stands on the same corner. It's a big tradition on Drummond and St. Catherine, and I went as a child with my family, my brothers, and my aunts and uncles and my parents, and now I bring my children, and we do it every year, rain or shine or snow or cold or whatever.
You know, as a little kid, I would be on the side of St. Catherine Street looking up at all of the floats. And so I've always admired the St. Patrick's Day Parade, and I think it's really just part of our history here in Montreal.
I remember being in it with Girl Guides, watching it, walking in it with the Quinn family, and now I get to be a princess representing it. It's pretty cool.
Everyone really enjoys the atmosphere. Everyone enjoys feeling like they're a part of something bigger, and the Irish definitely know how to bring that out in people. I mean, you come to an event like this, and you automatically feel like everyone around you is here supporting the same people as you are. You kind of get just like swallowed up by the crowd, and I mean, who wouldn't want to be a part of that?
No matter the weather, we promise to warm all of your hearts with a welcoming wave and a parade lineup that is sure to impress.
General attendance runs anywhere from 250,000 to 700,000, depending on the weather in Montreal, which can literally vary from basking in sunshine to glacial winter storms.
When you walk down St. Catherine Street and see 300,000 to 500,000 people, depending on the weather, last year was probably 3. The year before was probably at least 500,000 people, based on it was a great sunny day. The look, the feel, the flags, the faces, the kids, the children, and the participants in the parade. This gives a full meaning of what we Irish, what we as the sister societies can really put out there and makes Montreal the city that it is.
No matter what the weather is, there's always everybody out to support the Irish community, and that's what I think is the greatest about it.
Over the years, the parade has also become a celebration of the city's diversity that makes Montreal stand out as such a melting pot in the world. Boasting the 3rd largest parade in the world, it plays a part in Montreal's reputation on the world stage as a lively and rich city. It's an end of the winter celebration for Montrealers of all stripes.
The real connection that the people feel to the Irish community for what they've done in Montreal, the real sense of pride that they have in their community, it's an opportunity for them to come and celebrate. And it's something that's not reserved to the Irish. It opens itself up to everybody in Montreal, and everybody comes out and supports it. And so it's something that sort of happens naturally, like every spring.
We all have a little bit of cabin fever because we've been inside since Christmas and we're broke. So all of a sudden, you know, St. Patrick's Day comes along and the whole Irish season leading up to it, we're all desperate to see anything green because it's all white and slush and snow outside. So I think you put it all together and it's just a wonderful package for Montreal.
It's unique because it's been going on for so long. It's unique because we have so many cultures here in Montreal that come to the parade regardless. They don't have to be Irish. So it's like a real community event.
You look on that street when we're going down, there's all kind of dogs and dressed up and everything else. People who don't speak a word of English or French. And here they are out, you know, in the wintertime to see a parade. And for me, I think that's the greatest thing that could ever happen.
It's when Montrealers kind of can literally come out the door, look at each other, be aware of all the different diverse communities as they're walking in the parade and share in that larger identity.
Now with the St. Patrick's Day Parade, the theme is no longer religious nor inclusive. It's for everyone to come out and share your own Irishness, regardless of your actual roots, and celebrate the pride of the city of Montreal. And as they say, aren't we all Irish on St. Patrick's Day?
It's wonderful. Like, you're always going to find people Irish on St. Patrick's Day.
It means so much to Montreal. I mean, 192 years of tradition. We spoke about like 40% of Quebecers have Irish roots, and it's so amazing just to see even people who don't have Irish roots coming out onto the streets of St. Catherine, and you know, they're supporting us and having a great time.
I'm a Montrealer. I grew up in Montreal, and the parade has been a gathering point for different communities, societies, organizations, as a chance to showcase the Irish heritage that is so important to this city.
We're a huge part of Montreal. Like, a lot of Montreal is Irish, and it's really fun because in the St. Patrick's Day Parade, everybody gets to be Irish a little bit. It's fun.
Once I saw the parade, the amount, what it did for the city, it drew people together. You know, we say everybody's Irish on St. Patrick's Day, walk down St. Catherine Street. It is. And it truly sets Montreal apart from a lot of other communities.
Everybody wants to be Irish on St. Patrick's Day. And why? I think just because of our nature, we're very happy, fun-loving people, okay? And I think that's something that we share always with our community.
And this is the strength of the Irish. It's that openness to encompass everybody to be a part of our celebration.
And you watch the different communities going by, and it's all just a reminder we're still here, we love it here, and we're very proud of our Irish roots and our Irish ancestry, and looking forward to continuing to make take an important part in developing Quebec society.
Everybody has a story. Everybody has some sense of the Irish community. It's the greatest example of integration, that mixity. It's all part of us, equal and different at the same time. And we all have, you know, that feeling that we're part of something. So celebration is like family time. Plus they have cocoa.
Plus they have cocoa.
Are we gonna have Irish coffee this year?
We have the best cocoa anywhere in Montreal.
So, St. Patrick's Day parades worldwide aren't just an excuse for drinking yourself silly and getting rambunctious. They carry a lot of significance and are a testament to building a better life. The history of the parade is tied to the flood of Irish who kick-started Montreal.
The Irish is on the flag of Montreal, and it's a great opportunity for the Irish community to say who they are, what they've done, and what they're doing still in Montreal.
But as I say, it's such a dynamic community, and a community with a great future, too. It's not just celebrating the past or nostalgia. Irish community continues to make a great contribution to Montreal.
So every time you see the parade and love all the fun it brings, remember the many contributions Irish Montrealers gave to your city. Now go and Erin go bra. That's Ireland forever, the traditional language of Ireland in Gaelic. And no, I am not fluent in Gaelic, not quite yet for that matter.
His name is Graham Batty, and he's the official bagpiper, and he's been doing it for 20 years. Is that correct?
Has it been that long? Yeah.
That's what I've heard.
A couple of different churches host me, and I play for their different services, in and out, to get the people, in the mood for St. Patrick's Day, and then if I have time, off to the parade.
Would you like to try on my
Yes,
sash?
let's do that. I've never worn a sash. Look at.
Now let me do this.